the exposure, international exposure to give you, the work ethics that you gained from this award, you bring it to Ghana to enrich the performance of the fourth estate, because democracy without a thriving media, print and electronic media, cannot work too well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Piedim. It's always a delight speaking to you. So let's talk about the Bank of Ghana. It's been in the news lately for the very wrong reasons. What do you make of all the cacophony that's surrounding the Bank of Ghana?
I think that you said, I normally don't like talking about Bank of Ghana. It's a very sensitive institution. When people are coming to lend to Ghana, or we are dealing with the IMF, the World Bank, the credibility and the integrity of the Bank of Ghana is very, very important. And therefore, we have to be very careful when we are talking about them. Also, the issues they handle, the exchange rate policies, monetary policies. These are issues you cannot talk openly about without having consequences on the market. The Chinese have a saying that you sometimes shoot at the chicken in order to frighten the monkeys. And in my village, they will say that when you are playing the drum, the skin, the surface is there. You don't play the sides. Some of us were saying that the crisis, the depth of the crisis Ghana is facing now, the economic crisis, is unprecedented. It's heavy. The government kept denying it. The only time I heard the Minister for Finance say there was or there has been a crisis was the last budget that he, where he stated that. And he quickly went on to say that we've turned the corner. That was the time he should have said, look, the crisis is deep. We need all Ghanaians to tighten our belts for an austerity program so that we get out of this mess. It's going to take us minimum 10 years to crawl back. And he should have added, but for Bank of Ghana's prudent intervention, the problem would have been worse. You and I remember that the city went almost 12 to 15, 18, and then slid back. By now, without Bank of Ghana's intervention, and I'll come to that, the city might have slipped to 20, 30 by now, 30 cedis to the dollar. So, as far as I'm concerned, when the Bank of Ghana report came, then they should have signaled to our people, the MPs, who claimed they probably didn't understand what was happening, and to our bankers, our business community, that the crisis we've been talking about is by far more than we've admitted. And this is what is reflected in this deficit. You know, about 50% of that deficit is what people will call technical deficit. That is, you didn't do any operations to incur it, but it happened because to get the agreement for people to accept the haircut, Bank of Ghana had to accept about 50% of the holdings of government bonds to be cut by 50%. Otherwise, we would not have reached the 50, the 80%, 85% we're talking about on the domestic debt exchange. So all this should tell us now that the crisis was by far bigger. You talk about why was Bank of Ghana saying they were not printing money?
They denied it.
They denied it. Okay. This is an issue that I raised quietly in confidence with the governor. This discussion, Honorable Adongo raised it. I said this discussion is a political discussion. Bank of Ghana should not interject themselves into a political discussion. Let the chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, the Minister for Finance, and the ranking member on the Finance Subcommittee in Parliament discuss it. If they want to, they can summon the Minister for Finance to come and bring you for you to answer questions. You don't respond. And when you are responding to, it's peculiar that this document came out from the office of the secretary to the bank. She's a lawyer. Even I don't understand money printing. But let me explain money printing to you. You know, Bank of Ghana is the bank of the government of Ghana. I mean, the government has several accounts with the Bank of Ghana. When Ghana Revenue Authority is collecting monies for the bank, for the government, they deposit it there. When the government writes a check, Bank of Ghana honors it. If Bank of Ghana doesn't honor it, there will be chaos. You remember, Dufo once said that he wasn't going to honor checks when he was governor. If the Minister for Finance doesn't have money, he will not honor. And he bounced a few checks. It was problematic. Because if you are bouncing checks, the checks are for the salary of teachers, soldiers, policemen,
payments, you mean?
Pensioners, everything. So you honor them. At the end of the year, when you are together, all the checks you've honored, because when I write a check on my account and there's no money in it, my bank gives me an overdraft. What is the overdraft? The overdraft is the excess money that Parkwisi Asare has in his account, which they then on-lend to me. But with Bank of Ghana, they don't have anybody else with excess capacity. So they finance it. At the end of the year, we take what they have paid on the government account
against what the government
has received. If there's a balance and they cannot finance it from their own working capital, and they go to the vaults to take money from the currency they printed there to come and cover that, that's the equivalent of money printing. So at the beginning, when they were saying that, I presume what they were saying is that...
In fact, to put into proper perspective, a statement they issued to set the records straight, according to the Bank of Ghana, was that the amount of 22 billion cedis that they were alleged to have printed represented net claims on government and not new currency printed to support the government's budget. Yeah,
they claiming that they have loaned it, they've given overdraft to the government. Can be from their own account, can be from other sources. But let me explain the process so that people can make up their own mind. The beauty about democracy is that people can go on the street, demonstrate, and give their own opinions. But in the final analysis, for us as a country, for us to grow, we have to find out if something went wrong, why did they go wrong? And then how can we prevent things going wrong so that we grow. So this is what is money printing. So what they were saying might have been that, no, we haven't reached the stage where we can decide whether there has been money printing or not. But let me go back and say that the independence of Bank of Ghana, you know, we said Bank of Ghana should be independent. This crisis has shown us that there are few gray areas that we need to review. For example, even though Bank of Ghana is independent, we still made it that they have to report through the Minister for Finance. And if Bank of Ghana is going to get into the difficulties that we are discussing about, it's because the Ministry of Finance is not doing their job properly. What the economists call fiscal dominance. That is the mismanagement of our expenditure and revenues by government is dominating the monetary vehicles for managing the economy.
But Mr. Pierre, this was anticipated, and that is why the law was made that once Bank of Ghana wanted to give beyond the 5% as is mandated by law, it needed to go to Parliament, and that's what the minority ranking member, then ranking member on finance in 2022, Kesela Tuforsin, said that the bank had printed an amount of 22 billion cedis to finance government's budget without parliamentary approval. And your explanation is what?
I don't recall that they need parliamentary approval. Remember, we suspended the Fiscal Responsibility Act. When the Fiscal Responsibility Act was removed, it was saying in effect, we cannot obey the regulation that we have governing the fiscal.
Right.
Okay. So we are suspending it. During President Mohammed's time, when the IMF was pushing that there should be zero funding from Bank of Ghana, I fought it. I said it's wrong. We should not agree. IMF forced Sir Tekpe to sign an agreement with Governor Wampa that there will be zero funding. It's a misunderstanding of the money affairs of a government. When they don't have the money and the revenue is coming in, somebody has to fit it in. The previous law used to say that 15% of the previous year's revenue collection, the Bank of Ghana could lend it on lend to government to cover those type of things. So that was wrong. Then we signed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which says if there's a problem, you can suspend it. When the Minister for Finance went to Parliament and they agreed to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Parliament should have asked what happens to the equivalent, that is the monetary policy one, which is, I think, Article 36 of the amended Bank of Ghana Act, which says that if there is an emergency and Bank of Ghana needs to be able to suspend the rules surrounding monetary policy, what they do is to inform the Minister for Finance. It's the Minister for Finance's responsibility to report to Parliament. We didn't make Bank of Ghana responsible to go to Parliament. So when the Minister for Finance went to Parliament to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, somebody from the opposition or from the government should have asked, what happens to Article 36 of the Banking Act? And the minister should have said, concurrently, that part is also suspended. Because you cannot suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act and leave the complementary dimensions on the monetary policy side. Because the fiscal part affects the channels of the monetary policy. And this should have been clear. It wasn't clear. That's one of the gray areas.
But somebody has got to take responsibility for it. This is, your explanation is after the fact, that the refusal to do what the law said obviously should be punishable. So who takes the responsibility? Is the finance minister?
There's a gray area. As I'm saying, this is not new. Between Frimpong Ansah, who was governor, and J.H. Mensah, they were difficult, even though in those days, Bank of Ghana was reporting to the Minister for Finance. We changed that. Yao Safo was the strongest advocate of the independence of the central bank. I said, Yao, if politicians cannot protect the interest of people who vote for them, how can we expect a technician to be responsible to care for the interest? And Yao Safo was trained as a banker from Germany, where the governor of the central bank, if there's a rift between the central bank governor, the federal governor, and the Minister for Finance, the minister resigns because they went through this serious depreciation of their currency after the Second World War. So for them, stability of the currency is very important. What I'm saying is that the laws that we made, you make a law, you follow it with regulations, and then you follow with practice. The practice, we have not been there. It's a gray area. And let me tell you about the experience I have from UBA. Of all the institutions I've been chief executive of, boards that I've served on, I used to tell all the people who were working for me in Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, Cocoa Board, and then PURC as board chair, everywhere. New World, my private company. Take action. Act. Don't waste around time afraid to take action. If you make a mistake, I'll protect you. But if you make a mistake and you benefit financially from it, you have me to answer to. So the same way, UBA, that's one thing I learned from UBA, one of the strongest banks. When a mistake is made, we all sit down, honestly, frankly, and review what went wrong. Was it lack of regulations? We go through it. Was it a human error? Was it a process error? And then we identify what went wrong. If it was human, was it fraudulent or incompetence or just a sheer accident? We go through all this, and then we decide. Then we go back and check. If there was lack of clear, very precise definitions with clarity on the regulations laws, we amend it. If it was a human error, we deal with it. If it was fraudulent, we deal with the person. What is happening is this. What the governor did, what rules was he following? Have we checked if the governor had been brought to Parliament, where he will be talking under oath? What processes did you take in terms of consultation to do what you have to do? And all he was doing, remember, is honoring checks that were being drawn upon him. Whom can he complain to? He can go to the president and say, Mr. President, we're in a dire situation. Have we asked him?
Some of us heard from the grapevine that he had threatened to resign.
What I heard is that he was unhappy. Why was he unhappy? He was unhappy because the severity of the economic crisis was not being communicated, neither to Parliament, neither to us, neither to the print and electronic media, and nobody was asking serious questions. What is going wrong?
But as a governor, if you're worried, if you indeed wanted the people of Ghana to know the difficulties that the economy was confronted with, and the politicians were refusing to do so, why didn't you just resign?
Resignation doesn't solve any problem. If the governor resigns now, what happens? The same Minister for Finance, who is at the core of the economic crisis, recommends whom? To the president, the same president. They appoint somebody who doesn't know the terrain, who hasn't gone through this experience to be able to solve the problem. No. What I'm saying is that, was it through incompetence? No, not incompetence. Was it through fraud? Did the governor benefit? Did any of his companies benefit from what he did? As I said...
Well, the people of the country suffered.
The people...
They suffered through high inflation and through high interest rates, because once inflation was high, the governor himself, who had given so much money to the government, now turns around with the help of the Monetary Policy Committee to increase the prime rate, which inevitably increased interest rates.
What I'm trying to get across to you is this. Let's see the alternative. I'm not holding brief for anybody. Let's see the alternative. The government decided we are bouncing government checks. The soldiers are not paid. Policemen are not paid. Nurses and doctors are on the street. The sick can't get anything. One would have said, okay, this will have signaled to the Ghanaian people that we are in a mess. We'll be in a Sri Lanka situation. You remember, the IMF managing director told us during part of that, your problem is not different from Sri Lanka. Did we get that in Ghana? Did you get that impression? That we have this dire economic situation?
I didn't.
We didn't. So why did you expect that the governor who was communicating this to all of us, that there's a crisis and we are not being told? Now we are being told, you, by saving us from a bigger crisis, as I said, if they had not done what they did, the city will be now about 30 to 40. We've been there before.
So, Mr. Pierre, I do get your point, and it's quite a valid point, that we're in a critical situation and we needed help. And the Bank of Ghana had to come in to save the situation. But the law was such that it only asked for Parliament and the people of the country of Ghana to know the situation, and then based on that, possibly Parliament would have approved it.
No, I'm saying that there are grey areas in the law. The governor doesn't go to Parliament.
So you're blaming the finance minister?
The laws we all made, we need to clarify the laws that we made.
But if you, you say we all need to clarify the laws, then nobody's taking responsibility for anything. Then we are all at fault then.
Of course, yes, that's what I'm saying.
But that's why we put leaders in place to hold the fort, and they take responsibility for their actions.
Let's demonstrate against the president. He is responsible. He appoints the governor, he appoints the minister for finance. What I'm saying that the law, we all say that Bank of Ghana is independent. I'm trying to say that there are gray areas in that law. That law, when they say that, we should say that the Bank of Ghana, when they have issues, they should report direct to Parliament. Okay? The other similar, technically independent, operationally independent institution is the PURC. When they are setting up the tariff, they have nobody, they should listen to nobody from outside. They look at the data and they set it. And what do? They gazette it, legislative instrument, it's gazetted. And it's can be laid in Parliament for 21 days. If they want to comment upon it, they comment upon it. Maybe we need something similar for the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana, what the governor does is that when this emergency, you do Article 36 of the Banking Act, is that they inform the Minister for Finance. The Minister for Finance responsibility is to go to Parliament. If I'm told to inform you and I inform you, I've done my job. Then you take the board. When they were going to get this haircut, which is the technical losses, that is part of the 60 billion you are talking about, they go to the board. The board then, if they think they want to do that, they pass a resolution. The resolution was passed. The shareholders are us, Parliament representing us as the citizens of Ghana. What are the rules that we made? That when they pass that, the resolution should go to Parliament. There's nothing like that. They informed the Minister for Finance. Minister for Finance, when he was talking to Parliament about suspending the Financial Responsibility Act, should have added that part. It wasn't added. So let's clarify it. Don't let us sacrifice a person and not change the rules. Let's change the rules, the practices, and make sure that next time this doesn't happen.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chesena me ankasa me period no say problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chesena nya asem ketewa na mkwan point no mo hwe me modem no mo hwe bibia na so mo meduro me fire no ene ma won kra me enu kofro kwa na mkwan mu a eba
and everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama no nura ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you of Acrobato. Hello
hey ohwehwe what che
okay
e free bra wo di end point wa dance am me ko ye no me Johnson sema na enkoyie empaso na maye mre nyina na magina sebema na me no bifie for de e ho na nyina jaresa.
You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
The sweet scent of rose in the morning brings me so much joy. Inspired by damask rose and infused with 100% natural rose oil. Introducing new Claysoft Perfume Beats Washing Powder. It's like bringing a garden with you everywhere with this wonderful perfume. Take a garden with you everywhere you go with Claysoft Perfume Beats Washing Powder.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo Superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo Paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo Paint, simply superior.
Ghana coming out again, the same squad. For the ball, he's got it! Throw it down, Kings!
Sports Station, Mondays, 9 p.m. on TV3.
Sports Station is brought to you by Betway, Nesta Mouthwash.
Flamingo Paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Bank of Ghana, in trying to justify what had happened, said that 53.1 billion of the total loss of 60 billion cedis occurred as a result of government's domestic debt exchange program. According to the statement, the BOG said it had to step in to arrest a major economic and social crisis since the domestic auction was failing. So what you're saying is that the Bank of Ghana lost 60 billion cedis because of its overexposure to government instruments and debt.
Yeah.
And that's how come the Bank of Ghana became bankrupt.
Yeah.
And you think that the governor should not be held responsible for that?
No, I mean, Ghana Commercial Bank, they are in the market trying to raise 2 billion. Why? Through the impairment that was caused by the domestic debt exchange. Let me say something now. Some of us felt the domestic debt exchange was the wrong way to go in fixing our problems. I put together Dr. Paul Akwa, myself, Ishmael Yamson, Sam Jonah, Ernest Ayute from Bank of Ghana, Frank Edu, Mauli Abebio, and then Togba Afede. We sat for 3-4 days and crafted a memorandum, a document, which I sent to the president, copied the vice president and the minister for finance. That is the wrong way to go. We just finished cleaning up the banking sector. It doesn't make sense to give a haircut to the banks to impair their capital adequacy ratio. Some of them make them insolvent. And then go and build up a fund to help this. Let us rather set up a fund, ask our donors and supporters to contribute to the fund to ease the domestic debt. It's only recent that this haircut is being applied to domestic holders of bonds. And it came about because the donors, the framework they were establishing, and you remember when they were establishing the framework for negotiating debt, Ghana refused to participate, Nigeria refused to participate, on sound justifiable grounds that there is no moral equivalence in treating domestic bond holders the same as Eurobond holders. Eurobond, they come, they look at the situation, price it, and then buy your bonds. Domestically, the banks, the insurance companies, the pension funds, they are mandated to put a certain percentage of their holdings, of their collections, in bonds and government securities because they are supposed to be safe, to safeguard that. So they are different. And also the domestic debt. My value, the external value of my assets in Ghana, in cedis, have been decimated, reduced to 50%. When the cedi was 5, if I have 10 million Ghana cedis, it's $2 million in assets. When the cedi become 10, I have 10, it's 1. I've lost 1 million just like that. And a lot of investors have lost things just like that. So there was no moral equivalence. And we should have told the donors, we are not going to ascribe to that. Unfortunately, once we're in our knees, even though we did not participate, that's the framework they are using. And when the IMF said, we'll give you 3 billion, that's the maximum. And remember, IMF, because of the crisis, called their board and said, we want to do something extraordinary beyond what our regulations do. Give us permission to create these additional assets we can lend. That's what the IMF did. When we came here, we suspended the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And what we should have done then was to say that a whole lot of these things were being suspended. This is the crisis. We need Bank of Ghana to come in so that we can say that we have gotten 85% of the bondholders to have agreed. We didn't do that. We kept saying the thing has succeeded. Why? Because instead of 5%, Bank of Ghana was being asked 50% of your assets are being taken off. So, to me, we are not tackling the problem properly. The use of a crisis is to benefit from it, take advantage of it, to correct some of the mistakes or some of the lack of clarity in your system so that you clear it. If you say the governor should get for incompetence, he wasn't incompetent. For fraud, he didn't benefit from it. Neither his family or the relations he have, or he had no company that was benefiting from it. What did he do wrong? He followed, like all of us were following, as if things were normal. They are not normal. The crisis is still on.
Did you get a response from the president?
Were ignored completely. The only response indirectly that we got was Sam Jonah meeting the Minister for Finance at a reception when the Vice President of the US was here, and he said, oh, we are still chewing over your document. Not a whimper. So if somebody like me in the party have a position in the party, I'm one of the foundation members of the party. If my voice, and until I started saying that the Minister for Finance was not doing things correct and something should be done about him. If I call the president 1 hour, he'll respond. What's the problem? Come and see me. We talk. So if I could not get the ear, how do you expect a technician to get the ear of the president? So the crisis we are in is deep. It was being denied. The bankers, when they were negotiating, the Bankers Association thought they had a mandate to negotiate. Why did they learn their governance from? They are not shareholders of any bank. They should have said, this discussion have to go to the shareholders, to the directors of the banks. We need 21 days, not 18 days, to summon shareholders to come. And
how do you know they didn't consult shareholders?
How do I know?
How do you know that they didn't consult their shareholders?
I'm a shareholder of one of the banks. They didn't consult them. How can you have 18 days? You need 21 days minimum to convene an emergency general meeting. They did not. They just tell them and they go. How can you do that? They should have had enough time. And it was made as if the Minister of Finance were doing us favor, pensioners, help me to help you. We should have said, like the IMF. IMF said, the bailout, we are going to give you money. These are the conditions. Cut down expenditure. Then they come to us and said, okay, we are taking money from pensioners and from banks and so forth. But we are taking it, whether you like it or not. And we are going to mark your government bonds, if you don't accept this one, to zero, impairing your capital and your shareholders' funds. We should all have gotten together and said, okay, we are prepared to help. These are conditions. Which of your projects legacy projects are you prepared to sacrifice? What expenditure management are you prepared to do? We didn't have a chance to do that.
The Bank of Ghana is also being criticized heavily for its decision to put up a new office complex that's costing over $200 million. A colossal sum of money when they've just declared a loss of about 60 billion cedis, I beg your pardon. Who's advising the central bank governor and the board of directors?
Look, it's a shame that we are talking about the Bank of Ghana new building within the context of this laws. Before 2019, 2020, Bank of Ghana was doing very well. I remember as far back as Governor Wampa looking for land for a new head office for Bank of Ghana. I said, look, you have an iconic building on High Street. Why do you want to move out from there? And I had forgotten. You know where the old Enterprise building used to be at the beach? Coming through Barclays Bank and Bank of Ghana, all the way through Ridge here, through Eburi. That's the earthquake fault in Ghana. When there are tremors, everything shakes around you. Even here in my house, I feel it, the tremor. So the idea is that you don't want this critical institution on an earthquake vault. So let's look for something else. Wampa didn't find the land. I thought he was finding. And then when this new governor came in, they got land. The land where they are building belonged to SIC. I think somebody had put it up to SIC for something. It got taken over by SIC. And I think the president had to use an executive instrument to take the land from SIC and give it to Bank of Ghana. Why is it so big? You know, we forget, we're in the 21st century. When you are building a new building for any critical institution, the ICT infrastructure has to be there. The Wi-Fi system, the security walls to protect your data is very, very important. To protect your data from laundress and all these smart people who can always cause your system to crash. So that's what they are doing. And not only that, you know, Bank of Ghana built City House for Agri Development Bank. Then they realized they needed a place for their money, so gradually they were moving forward until they practically occupied it. But it was not supposed to be for them. So they want to take the staff from there, the staff from the one on High Street into the new building. And also, remember, when there was a war in Côte d'Ivoire and the African Development Bank wanted to move, they wanted to move to Ghana, which was closer to Côte d'Ivoire. There was no suitable building for them. That's why they moved all the way to North Africa. So somebody thought the West African Central Bank may be coming on soon. We already host the West African Monetary Institution. So we'll be bidding against Nigeria. Nigeria wants it. If we have a building that is properly equipped and modern, maybe we can attract it to be that. So that also came into it. That accounts for the size of the building. But this was done a long time ago when Bank of Ghana was doing well. They were making a profit of $1 billion a year. And they were putting money aside towards the building of this structure. And then this crisis comes, everything goes down. Okay.
But it's expected, isn't it?
It's what?
It was expected that people will ask questions.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying that it's right that people ask questions. And that's what democracy is all about. People ask questions. But then you give them the explanation. The context is very, very important. So at the time it was planned, and me, I'm happy that they were planning with the future in mind. You know, if you don't plan for tomorrow, tomorrow comes, you are yesterday, you are behind. We have to attract institutions into this country by making sure that we have the right structures. I'm happy that Ghanaians are asking questions based on data. Why did this big loss come about? It has been explained, but that's what I'm saying. We are beating the drum. That's it, Chini, and Nimdahwa, Yamonchen. So let's beat on the drum. The crisis is not over. We are in the middle of it. the only people who have any experience to continue. And as I said, when you learn from your mistakes, a mistake is not fatal. It's what we do with a mistake. All of us as a nation, if we learn from our mistakes, so that we learn from it and improve the structures and the practices so that it doesn't happen again, then we are making progress. But if you just say one person should go, it doesn't solve the problem.
Let's talk about the governing board of the Bank of Ghana, which is the board of directors, as stipulated in the Bank of Ghana Act 2002. I think it's Act 612, and consists of the governor, who's a chairman, the 2 deputy governors, as well as 10 non-executive directors. We know the board is appointed by the president in consultation with the consultation with the Council of State. The governor and the 2 deputy governors are appointed for a term of 4 years and are eligible for reappointment. The non-executive directors hold office for a period of 3 years and are also eligible for reappointment. Now, I'm particularly interested in the responsibility of this board, which is to formulate policies necessary for the achievement of the bank's objectives, which are to maintain stability in the general level of prices and to ensure effective and efficient operations of the banking and credit systems and support the general economic growth. When you see all that's happening today, the fact that inflation has spiraled to over 40%, all these difficulties, the decision to for the Bank of Ghana to overexpose itself to government debt and securities, does that not bring into sharp focus or question the role of the board of the central bank?
The mismanagement of the economy has exposed all of us, pensioners, individuals, anybody who hold government securities, the churches, all of us have been exposed. Businesses have been exposed. Businesses are writing off, banks are writing off. The banks we consolidated as in difficulties because of the domestic debt exchange, okay? So all of us. When you say that, it's not the, I always compare the role of the Bank of Ghana vis-a-vis the Minister of Finance. 2, you want this floor to be kept dry. The Minister for Finance is pouring water on the floor. You equip it with a governor with a broom to mop up the water. If there is no judicious consultation and the minister kept pouring, fiscal dominance, you dominate this. Bank of Ghana can do nothing. The board, let's come to the Bank of Ghana board. Until this crisis happened, nobody, did anybody in the media say, publish for us, who are these directors on the Bank of Ghana? What is their experience? What corporate experience do they have? What financial, accounting, legal experience do they have to bring to bear on the governor, exposed to the governor? See, when you're a board, you are a sounding board. This is what we want to do. They come. Your job, have you considered this? Have you considered this on inflation, on the market women, on this and that? That's what you do. So, but we never asked. Now we are asking. We know that when the emergency has to be declared, the Bank of Ghana cannot stick to their rules, holding inflation between
the bandwidth of plus or minus
8% and so forth. They can't do that. The CD is gyrating and so forth. There are problems because of fiscal dominance. What should happen is that the board, we don't know. Maybe the board might have sought audience with the president to impress upon him the difficulties, the burden being unnecessarily put on Bank of Ghana to shoulder all this weight. When is the fiscal that is causing that? And therefore, the president and the cabinet should talk to the Minister for Finance and do something about that. Bank of Ghana, I know that on a couple of occasions went to cabinet to discuss with them the problems that they were having. So the board of directors, all this brings into question, how do we appoint members of the board? If somebody like Frank Edu, one of the best commercial bankers we have in Ghana, if he had been on the board there, he would have been able to direct them. He would have been able to say something about this debt exchange and the impact it was going to have on the banks, which would then adversely affect the bank's ability to lend, their ability to make profit and pay into government revenue, the effect of this haircutting on pensioners who consume. So it's going to affect GDP, and this economy is going to be depressed for the next 10 years.
You've talked about the mode of appointment of people to the board of the Bank of Ghana, yeah, and what their influence will be, you know, as board of directors. One of the startling revelations I found out was that the governor also doubles as a chairman of the board of directors. How is that so?
History, you know.
Is that proper corporate governance?
From the history of our culture, the way Ghanaians behave. You know, they say everybody has been young before. But even as old as I am, there are people who are older than me. So you are never old enough, but everybody has been young before. When Governor J.S. Addo was governor, they made Dr. Agama chairman of the board.
Agama?
Yeah, Portfolio Agama, governor, chairman of the Bank of Ghana. And no Ghanaians, the governor's job is a technical one. And when he's doing that, he doesn't need any advice from anybody. Make sure the city is stable, make sure the currency is stable, make sure that we have a strong macroeconomic environment for growth to continue, price stability. When he's doing that, it's a technical thing, and he has a technician to do it. When you have a dominant, politically oriented, appointed chairman, it was making things difficult, and the governor and the chairman were always at loggerheads. So when Agama was then made governor, he didn't want a chairman. And we realized that in our culture, to appoint anybody as chairman to Bank of Ghana, it dampens the ability of the governor to do his work as a technician.
Welcome to tonight's Mega 6 Lotto Draw. Each draw takes place on an automated GLI certified